everyone, and welcome to this Energy Quick Chat, where we rub minds with stakeholders and players in the energy market. I am joined today by Bunmi Bajomo, Chief Operating Officer and Group Head of Corporate Banking at Ecobank Transnational Incorporated. Thanks for joining us here on Energy Frontiers, Bunmi. Now, the investing in mining in Indaba is said to be the #1 sport for deal sourcing and corporate matchmaking for the African mining industry. And this year, it seems like it got more participation. So as a banking executive, what are the key takeaways for you from the conference?
Thank you very much, Justina, and thank you to you and the African Frontier team. Like you said, the mining in Indaba just came to a close. And like you rightly said, is actually the largest gathering for mining operators or operators in the mining industry globally. And it's an annual event which is held in South Africa every February, with the exception of during the COVID time. I think in terms of key takeaway for me, #1 is I'll go through a bit of statistics in order to give life to it. Like you rightly said, it was a well-attended event. In 2023, it was well attended by over 8,000 people. This year even surpassed that record. That is fantastic. In terms of the basic statistics coming from learnings from the Indaba, #1, Africa accounts for over 30% of world deposit of mineral resources, cutting across different mineral strata: gold, diamond, cobalt, copper, manganese, and all of them across the region of the world. But despite Africa accounting for 30% of this mineral, the total Africa's share of global spend in terms of mining exploration is actually less than 10% and has been on the decline. If in putting a number to it, in terms of the global budget for mining operation, even though globally, because of what is happening in terms of the level of interest rate and the cost of operation, there had been a decline. Globally, the decline was about 2.5%. But for Africa, our total mining budget for exploration had actually declined from well above 3.5 trillion as of 2012 to about 1.27 trillion as of 2023. And then, despite that, of the world's total population of about 7.9 billion people, right? 3.5 billion of those actually reside in mineral resource countries or regions of the world. But rather than these minerals being a source of prosperity and progress, is actually all of these environments are actually characterized by conflict, poverty, inequality, retrogression, such that it seemed like the owners of the resources, the people who sit atop the resources that are beneath the ground, are actually not reaping the benefits of those resources. Then that takes you to what are we doing wrong? Rather than, if resources are well mined and well assessed, it could actually leapfrog Africa to the next frontier. Noises apart, the world cannot do without the mineral resources that are beneath the soils of Africa. But in order for Africa to benefit from it, the key challenges that we've seen, which was widely discussed, #1 is in terms of the environmental, social, and governance structure of these countries where those minerals are inhabited. Like, even for we as financiers, we are governed by different protocols that governs operation of mining. So sentiment aside, except we begin to pay attention to the environmental aspect of mining, the socio-economic impact, and the governance structure. So for Africa to really reap the benefit of mining, it is believed that you have to pay attention to the process of mining these minerals, the governance structure, the kind of policies in place, the operating environment, the policy for you to reap the benefit. The policy there must be clarity around policies, and there must be investor-friendly policies that attract the investment. Do not forget that investment compete for capital. Capital would go to where they will be most used, where the operating environment will be conducive for them. Outside of that, there was this talk around beneficiation, What is beneficiation? It was the buzzword for Indaba 2024. Beneficiation is the process of adding values to mineral resources so that rather than owning just the crude mineral and selling the crude mineral to the world, you need to be able to add value, boost the logistics supply chain in order to get the mineral from where it is beneath the ground and add value to it and sell it to the operators. So what we're saying is that Africa, with its huge population and over 50% youth population, had not been able to harness the benefit of those resources because the value-added system, the operating environment has not been conducive so that you can harness those value. So Africa is now realizing, and the major countries operating in this segment are realizing that for them to really reap the benefits, fine, the demand for e-battery and transition energy has led to significant increases in the demand for African mineral. If I take one of the minerals, lithium is an opportunistic mineral because about 10 years ago, there was no talk of lithium. It was there, but it wasn't used in iron ore industry. You were talking of manganese. But now, because of the demand based on the EV market, there has been significant jump in lithium prices. As of 2001, the prices of lithium was well below $500. And then it was at that level until near COVID, when it just touched about 1,000. Then with COVID, it fell significantly. And then as of 2023, by February, the price of lithium has moved from an average of $500 to well above $75,000. So for countries to reap the benefits, for countries to prosper, three things must happen. Number one is in the area of partnership. Partnership is at the core. Partnership and collaboration is at the core of what will lead us to the next level. Partnership are being formed, alliances are being formed, but they are not being formed at the pace at which they should form. For countries to reap benefit, there must be some kind of amalgamation of principle, policies, and resources in order to leapfrog. So number one is policy. Number two is ability to add value. If you look at the disruption that happened in the global market, China has been able to emerge as the technological manufacturing powerhouse of the world because they were able to, number one, buy these mineral resources from Africa, add value, put in place cost-effective logistical arrangements that produces the goods in record time and is able to get those goods from area of production to the consumptive economy where the materials are needed. For Africa to also reap the benefit of industrialization, we also need to now mine our value chain, add value. And it's good that I can give you a classic example of a collaboration that is now beginning to take place. So I'll take the Democratic Republic.
I heard everything you had to say, Bunmi. Ecobank has footprints in many of the African mining resource economies. So what roles do the Pan-African lender play in energy as a major input for mining activities in the continent?
Thank you very much. That's a form of advice for me, but fantastic. So like you said, Ecobank is a Pan-African bank. What we bring to the table to both the investing community and the host community is our network advantage that is cut across 33 countries and our 5 regional hubs. So we're present in 33 countries in Africa, and then we're able to mobilize resources through our regional hubs, one through our international franchise in Paris. We have a UK rep office, a rep office in South Africa. We have a Dubai rep office. And we also have a rep office on the fringe of Ethiopia. So what we bring to the table is our network and also our knowledge of the mining sector across different geography, West Africa, Southern Africa, the SADC region, Eastern Africa, the Central and Middle East Africa. We bring all of our competencies, and we have an array of mining specialists whose job is actually to harness the development in the mining sector. Then, given our pedigree, we are able to engage investors who want to go into countries and then be their face and be deliver to which they are able to engage sovereigns, government across all of this value chain. That is number one that we do. The second is that one of the problems that Africa has faced also in terms of the skills gap that exists in mining. And I give you an example. You had a lot of countries doing country showcase during Mining Indaba. You had the Democratic Republic of Congo one, you had the Zambia one, you had Namibia. Those ones were so oversubscribed that despite the fact that they used the presidential lounge, it was oversubscribed. He had the participation of us as financial lender. He has all of the major mining names, Ivanhoe, Kimi Group, all Glencore. He had the financiers, and he has the value chain support system. All of them making presentation. But if I contrast that to the presentation for the Nigerian showcase, the Nigerian showcase, number one, was not so well attended. The publicity around this was low, but a lot of the participants and the presenters were actually foreigners, expatriates. Even though the Director General of the SMDF actually gave a good account, but it shows the skills gap that was present. What we at Ecobank do is to bring our knowledge to bear, to partner with government in making sure that we bridge that skill gap. And the fact that we are also bankers to a number of mining operators, we also leverage their understanding across different markets. We partner with chambers of commerce and industry, ranging from Zimbabwe. We are present at all of the mining conferences where decisions are made, where investors and the host economies are brought together to make sure. Another thing, lastly, what we do, like I told you, we're a signatories to a number of mining protocols. We're signatories to best practices. We're governed by what I will call the GLM. What is GLM? GLM is in terms of the geography where the mines are located, the location, and the, how do I put it, the operating environment of the mines. We make sure it is not enough to house resources. Number one, the financier funding will go to where it is adjudged that resources have been sourced responsibly. The process of the input that goes into the production of those resources have also been judged to have been sourced in line with best practices. That is what we call responsible mining. We are governed by the ethics of responsible mining, and we make sure that across all of the geographies, for the project that we fund, we make sure that they are governed by that, so that we don't run foul of the law and we can attract funds in the green space where a lot of resources are being committed, and we can then mobilize that from the surplus unit onto the deficit unit. And we, in collaboration with the Development Finance Institution, who are focused on the productive segment, getting mining to work for Africa and for Africans. We partner with them, and then we're able to mobilize resources, help this government to put in place practices and policy that will help them to leapfrog to the next level.
I was going to ask you about what the bank's strategy and areas of focus is when it comes to evaluating potential investments in the mining sector. But if you look ahead into the future of mining, what are Ecobank's expectations in terms of mining in the industry?
Okay, thank you. So when we look at mining project, number one, because we're a commercial lender, we do not, number one, start our funding from pre-production stage. The mining operator must have gotten their project to the production stage. Production stage means that all of the initial barriers, extraction, geosciences, they've been overcome. So there is a tangible asset, right, that we can fund and we can finance. That is number one. In terms of, and they were governed by the environmental, social, and governance practices. Those are not, how do I put it? Those are not contestable in terms of what we do. As long as the governance structure, and it's to the benefit of all, where the governance structure is well laid out, it means there are policies of the government that are transparent, that are investor friendly, that can mobilize resources, and make sure government and nations are able to maximize the benefit of the resources that they inhabit. Number two is in terms of what happens to these countries. I talked about the principle of beneficiation. Beneficiation, it would only happen when government and nations are able to harness their competitive advantage. There's no benefit to beneficiation if there's no competitive advantage. Competitive advantage is what do you do best that you can bring to the table and say, okay, you, Ivanhoe, Glencore, this is my competitive advantage. I want you to partner with me. I want you to develop this mine and take it to the next level. And you know, I'm dropping some names of serious operator, right? Ivanhoe is at the point of expanding their mining project, the phase 3. The commitment is about 3 billion. Glencore has spent 2.3 billion in specific countries. So as us, we want to see that Africa is able to add value. So rather than being input supplier to mineral resources, to a battery process, we want them to now house the battery. I will give you a good example. So you have DRC and Zambia. DRC is #1 cobalt producer, the second producer of copper in the world. You have them partnering with their neighboring country, Zambia. Zambia is the second cobalt producer in the world and the 6th producer of copper. They've now come together to set up a valued processing zone for minerals, for copper and cobalt in the DRC, in the Ont-Katanga region. What that does is that rather than just being input supplier, now they are going to have a center of excellence for battery mineral, meaning that when Mr. Tesla needs mineral, he's not going to import raw material alone and go and build the battery in China. Those batteries will be built in that zone. Our expectation for the future is that we will see more African countries collaborating in that respect. And then we will see more African countries infusing a lot of best practices into their operation so that they are able to attract resources. And then we want to see what happens next for some minerals. Would lithium still be a mineral of the future? And then in terms of what companies do next, you can see South Africa for their iron ore production. They are no longer talking about manganese alone. They are now talking about what takes us to bring them into the EV spectrum. And let me put numbers to it. Manganese right now, in terms of green energy, the green initiative, the EV market, they only constitute about 3% in terms of production requirements. Now, by moving from manganese ordinary to manganese sulfate for South Africa, their share of the EV market is moving from less than 3% to 10%. That is what we see that African countries housing all of this mineral should begin to do into the foreseeable future. But you know, all of this cannot happen if they do not formulate the right policy. There is dearth of capital. And then finally, we want to see what happens in terms of the cost of investment, in terms of the cost of resource mobilization, because of the level of interest rate, where interest rate has gone up in advanced countries. A lot of resources have moved from the investment in minerals into just cash, because cash is now an asset on its own. Because rather than sinking my money into a mine, I want to just invest at 8%, 10% and earn return. As we begin to see a deceleration in interest rate, it means investment can now move from cash, which has now become a most sought after asset, into other investment outlets. So as you hear Mr. Jerome Powell reducing the cost of interest rate, when it begins to happen, then you know, oh, this decline in amounts available for mine exploration can now begin to go forward, and we can now move to that next thing. And then finally, I think, like I've told you, watch out for what happens in the ESG space. Watch out for the partnership and collaboration that emerge. I've told you the one in East Africa. Then watch out for what happens in the beneficiation campaign and the drive. And then finally, watch out for some countries. Ghana at the conference said there will be no single export of mineral resources in raw form from Ghana. going forward. So success by next year will be how much of that we can ascertain, how much of that can be verified. Then success is, let's check what happens in terms of collaboration between Zambia and DRC. Nigeria has warehouses about 44 types of mineral. We are just getting started. So let's see what the likes of Thor, and then I've seen a lot of Japan adverts on TV. Let's see what they are able to do. But it's not about advertisement. It's about ability to attract capital, ability to put in place best practices. I'm hoping for next year in Nigeria, it won't just be the CEO of the SMDF that will be around. The minister will be around. We had president coming to market their economies. So I want to see that level of seriousness and eagerness in order to attract investment. Then let's see what happens to South Africa because of their energy challenges, and what happens is their drive from poor steel into manganese sulfate and the impact that has on their economy. But in closing, this mining operation is highly capital intensive. As we move to green transition, we talk about net zero emission. Over 85% of emission reduction is expected for mining industry. But if you look at what you require, even for the iron ore industry, for additional production, you are talking in terms of 20 to 30 terabytes per hour of electricity generation. That calls for a lot of investment. It calls for a lot of support and collaboration. So I can't wait to see where Africa goes next. But we as Ecobank are here to support, to bring our skills on board, to bring our knowledge and technical expertise, bring our partnership with both financiers and the investors in the Africa-focused investors. So we can't wait to see where we go next. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Quite a lot to chew on there as you were sharing those insights. Thank you very much, Bunmi Bajomo, Chief Operating Officer and Group Head of Corporate Banking at Ecobank Transnational Incorporated. Thank you so much. And that's it on our Energy Quick Chat. Thank you everyone for taking time to watch. Make sure to comment, like, and subscribe to see more videos like this, and follow Frontier Africa Reports across all our social media handles. I am Justina Okechukwu. Bye for now.